Hello, everyone. Hello, Facebook family. This is Weekly Hope. Welcome to the show. I'm Kirsten Hagland, and it is great to be with you and wonderful to have you here. I'd like to, before we jump into our conversation today, I'd like to welcome you here to our Eating Disorder Hope Facebook page and tell you a little bit about what we do here and what we do with this show as we wait for people to come on. So if you're finding us for the first time, if we're showing up in your feed, popping up, hello, it's nice to see you and to have you here. Weekly Hope is a show that Eating Disorder Hope has been doing since about May of this year. And what we do here is we're usually every Wednesday, sometime other days of the week, but we like to be here to bring on experts, clinicians, advocates, people with their own recovery stories to talk about different topics. So every week is something new and different, a different conversation. And of course, we so value our guests that are able to come on and share with us. And a big part of the show is your involvement. So we encourage your comments, your questions, your concerns, anything and everything that pops into your mind throughout the show, throughout the broadcast. We just want to encourage you to let us know and to take this opportunity that we have to have these incredible experts on to ask your questions. We've had some shows where conversations have gone in a completely different direction than myself or our guests had even thought because of really excellent comments and stories that people have shared in the comment section. So just want to invite you to share what's on your heart and to also, maybe if you don't even want to ask a question, just wave hello, say hi, let us know your name, where you're signing in from. It's always cool to see where people are watching this show from because we have a global audience. We've gotten people in from Australia, from New Zealand, from Nepal, from India, from Brazil, obviously all across the United States. So it's just really special to see those people. South Africa, we have a woman who watches us, almost every week from South Africa, and she's awesome. So we always just love to hear where you guys are from and what's on your mind. So just want to encourage that conversation. This is a totally safe place for you to be. And also, before I introduce my guest, I want to say thanks so much, everyone, for dealing with or for being with us on the day before Thanksgiving, because this is a big week, and holidays can be all kinds of stress. They can be amazing and wonderful, but they can also be just challenging. And so I'm really glad that we're taking this time and that you are here today, the day before Thanksgiving, to just hopefully check in, get the support that you need, and just kind of focus in on recovery principles and hopefully something, even though we're not talking specifically about holidays today, just that you'll be able to find something hopeful and inspirational within our conversation today that will be able to get you through this challenging season, because it can kind of stink, but it can also be absolutely wonderful. So let's just all kind of hang together in that and stick together in that and find our people, because that supportive recovery community is really what helps get us through a lot of these challenging times. So with that, I want to introduce our guest and our topic for today, which I'm really excited to talk about for a couple different reasons, which I will mention. So please welcome, joining me on the other side of the screen, Jenna Marcus.
Hey guys.
Did I get it right, Marcus?
You were really close, Marcus.
Oh shoot! I looked at it again as soon as it popped up on the screen. I'm like, I'm going to say it wrong. So,
if it makes you feel any better, every time I read it, I still say Marcus in my head and have to correct myself. So you're good.
Okay, good. So Jenna Marcus, and she is the alumni coordinator as well as general inspiration warrior at Timberline Knolls Residential Treatment Center in Chicago. And you're joining us from Chicago today, right, Jenna?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. And I am actually here stateside this week for the holiday. So I'm joining from Michigan. Sometimes I'm in other spots, but I'm close to you. So we're both in the Midwest. But so first of all, tell us a little bit about what you do at TK.
So at TK, I have the coolest job on campus, in my opinion. I get to maintain contact with everyone after they have left us, after they've had their treatment and discharged and gone home or gone on to their next step. So I never have to say goodbye to anybody, which is great. I get out of that. And then I just maintain connection with them, not so much ongoing treatment, but ongoing connection and relationship. We offer events for our alumni. We offer ongoing support through social media. and some other outreach efforts. And a lot of times that means facilitating sometimes a return to treatment. So I make sure that we keep that as seamless as possible if someone needs to come back for another stay. But so the main descriptor of my job is I make sure that we stay in touch with everyone, which is a joy. And it's amazing because I get to see then all the milestones and all of the, just all the exciting things that can happen post-treatment for somebody. So I never lose out on that.
Absolutely. And I know so many people who are TK alumni and just absolutely adore and love you and all of the great work that you do to keep people connected. And also, I just want to give a shout out to your Facebook page. If you're not friends with Jenna on Facebook, you need to be, because, and I said this the last time we had you on, because this is the second time we've had Jenna on the show. Because Jenna has one of the greatest sense of humors ever. I wish I was as funny as she was, and her posts are hilarious. So definitely need to friend Jenna on Facebook just for her memes. But that kind of leads to our discussion today, because you are always posting really hilarious things about your own journey through pregnancy, which you are pregnant, and it always, I think, and I've copied and shared so many of the images and the funny things that you have posted with my sister-in-law, who just recently delivered her second son, and my second nephew. And, she, every mother, every single woman going through pregnancy needs encouragement. And so whenever you would post something super funny, I would always share it with her. And she always got a good laugh out of it. But we want to talk about pregnancy and motherhood and how to navigate that when someone is either in recovery from an eating disorder or has that in their past, or perhaps is, in the middle of an eating disorder, because it's not talked about enough. And it can be, I think, a very guilt, shame, stigma full, conversation. So to begin, now tell us a little bit about your family, because this is going to be your second child, right?
It is. And I've been telling people we evidently like to space them out, because I'm having a little girl, when my daughter is born, my son will be 17. So there's a little bit of a space.
Oh my gosh, he's 17 already.
He's 16 now. He'll be 17 in February, and she's due right around his birthday. So yeah.
Wow.
Space them out. And there's a reason for that. My son was born with my first husband, and my daughter is born with my now forever husband, Tim. So that's the reason for the lag there. But yeah, so it's going to be baby mix 4, and my son Jaden, who's been the highlight of my life, will continue to be the highlight of my life, and will now have company in that role. So it's going to be a transition for him too, having been an only child for 17 years, to suddenly not be. So big changes are coming, but all three of us are super excited about it.
Amazing. And can you talk a little bit? Let's start with maybe just you could share your personal experience with how this has been for you. The second time around, I've had a really it's that season of my life where all of my friends are having babies, like literally.
Yeah.
That's just, we went through the phase where everyone was getting married, and now it's the phase where everyone's having children. So I feel bombarded by these messages all the time. And it often spurs to helps me to thinking often, okay, how can I support my friends or family who are going through this process and how difficult it is, whether they've had an eating disorder or not.
Yeah.
But what things do we need to be sensitive about? And then also anticipating, okay, a time in my life where I might decide to have children and what to look for. What has it been like for you working in the field that you do, having, you shared with us in such a wonderful, tender way, your personal story of recovery from an eating disorder years ago with us on the last episode. How has it been now as a woman who's been through the recovery process going through this again?
Humbling. In a word, it's been humbling. But I mean, in a good way. Obviously, all of this, everything I'm going to share today needs to be encapsulated in the fact that there's incredible joy around it. It's very much a both and. So I wouldn't trade this journey for absolutely anything. And inherent to this journey is a real need for that sense of humor of mine that you mentioned. It truly is humbling as a woman, walking out my own recovery. It's truly humbling, because stuff that you thought you might have had in the bag suddenly will rear its head. And, you thought you'd worked all these years at sort of making peace or some semblance of peace with the body you're living in. And then boom, in a moment, you're living in a different one, or so it seems. which is, yeah, it's challenging for sure. It's, like I said, you have to laugh sometimes. And also, surrounding that is that it's amazing. So every day and throughout different moments of the day, I have a choice of how I'm going to respond to the changes happening in my body. And I've had to learn that it's okay to respond in two completely opposite different ways at the same time. As women, we tend to be, well, as humans, we tend to be complicated with our emotions anyway. We never really feel one way throughout the day or one way at a time. But add into that hormones, and now you feel many, many ways. And it changes often, and you need to kind of learn to ride the wave. Recognize that wherever I happen to be in a particular moment, it is what it is. I spent probably the first several months shaming myself for feeling the way I did at times, because it's like, I've wanted this for 16 years, and now I'm struggling with this, and why am I struggling with this? And I had to kind of come to a place of giving myself permission to be exactly where I was, which then has allowed me to also at the same time experience the incredible joy and excitement. So,
Yeah.
but it's tough. I mean, you work for so long to, like I said, to accept the body you're living in, and then it's like the scene changes. It's like
Yeah.
I almost have to kind of relearn some of those things. It's like the training wheels were taken off, and now I'm learning all over again. And as soon as I do, then she'll be here, and I'll have a different body. So I mean,
Mm.
it's kind of part of the process of, and the privilege really of being a woman is that we are ever evolving, creatures. So it's been a ride, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so excited too, and I'm so happy for you, and congratulations. I'd love to talk with you, well, about so many things, but there's two areas where, I'd love for you to help our viewers maybe to be encouraged, or how to respond, because the public commentary that pregnant women have to deal with is intense, especially if you're someone who's struggled with body image issues. And I think in two regards: one, the comments about your weight, or just looks. Are you gaining too much? Are you gaining too little? And it might not only be from family and friends, but it's also from media and advertising, and so many different things, and even from doctors who may or may not have any kind of knowledge about an eating disorder, and so can make very triggering comments about weight. How do you navigate that? Because obviously it's necessary to gain weight for the health of the baby. But what kind of tips or insight or wisdom can you give to women who are struggling with, like, why can't everyone just shut up about my body?
Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for making that speakable. Really appreciate that. And it's entirely true. Like, we live in a society where it seems like women's bodies are up for general commentary anyway. But suddenly when you're pregnant, people think that they can just take the filters off and it's all going to be just accepted because, hey, you're pregnant. So some people, I've learned that, first of all, we need to give people grace, because most people, I don't think I've yet come across a malicious individual who is looking to hurt me with their words. I don't think that is the case. I do think, though, people can be a little, it's a harsh word, but a little ignorant of how they come across and the words that they use. So I'm not going to change all of them by the time this pregnancy is over. The only thing I really have control of is how I choose to respond to the things that are said to me. So I'm constantly reminding myself to listen to a person's heart rather than the person's words. That said, when someone sees you and goes, "Oh my gosh, you're so big," well, your whole life you've been trying not to hear that if you've struggled with an eating disorder, of a particular bend. So that's tricky, and I've had to learn to kind of take a pause before I react, and then sort of choose my response. A general thank you is usually fine. I find that really, and I know that you could kind of, each time this happens and you're confronted with somebody making comments that are hurtful, you could take the opportunity and sort of make it a teachable moment. And I have found really in this situation, I kind of pick my battles, because most people are just meaning to wish me well, or are just meaning to share their excitement with me. And I don't want to make anybody feel badly necessarily for having said something. So that's just my personal choice, is I tend to let it roll, respond. If it's someone who's really close to me, if my husband were to say something that would hurt me, I would absolutely be like, listen, this is how that fell on my ears, right?
Yeah.
But he's wonderful and he hasn't said anything horrible. So, but I mean, the general public, if I walk into work and, a receptionist or somebody makes a comment, I'm just going to smile and nod and say thank you and walk on. But then that kind of leads me to, and I think I spoke about this last time I was on too, the importance of having people in our lives as we're walking out recovery who are sort of trusted voices, explicitly trusted voices that we've given the right to speak into our lives. So if someone says something to me that's hurtful, I'm going to smile and nod, and then I'm going to go text my people and be like, oh my gosh, someone just said this to me. Help me. Do you think they meant that? I mean, and I might have my neurotic moment, but I have my neurotic moment with people who love me and whom I trust. And then I move on. So it's tricky. It's not like, I know as sort of advocates and world changers, we're always trying to, sort of impact the world around us and help people understand how to respond. And to a degree, that's great. And the other side of that is we're not going to necessarily change all the people around us, and we can only change our responses. As for, I know you mentioned like the doctor thing. That's a ball game. Thankfully, I'm working with a midwife, and she's amazing. She's amazing about weight. She's amazing about all of it. She's amazing about the fact that I'm 41, will be 42 when I deliver. I asked her about
this. Girl.
I know. I'm like, so I'm considered geriatric, right? And she just laughed, and she's like, I mean, technically, yeah. She's like, do you feel geriatric? I'm like, no, I feel 25. She's like, okay. And for our intents and purposes, we're going to pretend you're 25. They take extra precautions and stuff like that. But so I think that's important. I think if you have a provider, because I'm also on a couple, birth boards and things like that on what to expect and baby center. And I hear these horror stories from people whose doctors are just super insensitive, super weight focused to a degree that's out of balance, and super shaming, frankly, half the time. And so my response to people like that has been, you know what, you don't have to work with that provider. Chances are there's somebody else, maybe in the same office, or maybe not. Maybe you go elsewhere. But this is a person who's going to be walking you through, one of the most incredible and important journeys of your life. And if you don't trust them, and if you don't feel safe with them, and if you don't feel that you can be honest with them and have them hear you, move on and find somebody else. So, some of the things that have been said to women are just incredible, and I would not be able to withstand that. So thankfully, I've been very blessed. I will say I weigh myself backwards, or get weighed backwards, rather, at the midwife's office. She knows my history. It's the same woman who delivered my son almost 17 years ago. So, amazing. Which, of course, is funny. I walk in, I bring a picture of her holding him when he was a baby, and I'm like, remember this? And she's like, oh my gosh. And then I show her a picture of him now, and he's a 200-pound bodybuilder. And she's like, what happened? Like, well, it's been a minute. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, but at one of my early appointments, I came in with this like bright green sticky note that I had written out. And it was like, to whom it concerns, I have a history of struggling with an eating disorder, weight, numbers, all that, super triggering for me. I don't do well with it. Can you please not? Because the first time I weighed backward, and the nurse is like, oh, you're blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the fact that I'm backwards, probably, but I didn't educate her about that. So that was on me. But I didn't want that to happen again. Yeah. So I wrote this note, and I was like, please in the future, don't tell me the number. Let me get on backwards. If there's a problem, if there's a trend that is concerning, by all means, make that speakable to me. I want to make that, I don't want to be ignorant of what's going on. But it's just not helpful for me to know unless there's an issue. So I gave this to them thinking, oh, good, they'll read it. They'll have it in their heads, and we'll just move on. It's on the front of my chart. So every single time I go in, it's like, amazing. I know. They're like, oh, you're Jenna. And there's just glaring Post-it note, handle me with care. But they've done it. So and now it's cute because the nurse is always like, oh, that's right. I remember we do this way now, and so. But that's so cool. I need to make sure we're all on the same page, and that they're pulling for me and we're on the same team. So that's where it does include a little bit of responsibility on our part.
That's so cool, and such great tips. Very, very empowering. And I hope if anyone is watching and is going through this, or has a loved one that they're trying to support who's going through this, that just take all of that from Jenna and use it, because we are the most important decision makers in our healthcare decisions and in the process. And so be empowered to do the same thing that Jenna did. I think that's amazing. Just want to say also, if you're just joining us in the last couple minutes, pop on, say hello, let us know your name, where you're signing in from. We would love to hear from you. And of course, any questions that you might have for Jenna, or things you want to share, feel free at any time, and we'll get you your question or comment up on the screen. So Jenna, I'm curious to know how you feel like over the last 17 years, mommy culture has changed. Have you seen a big change in, because I know it seems like it would be a great thing that there's so much information out there for women who are pregnant, women who are young mothers, about what to do and what not to do, and just a whole lot of information. But it also seems to me incredibly overwhelming. And then we all hear all the time about just the judgment of mommy culture. Do you think that with the internet and social media and all that have you seen a real drastic change in 17 years?
Yeah, I think I probably wasn't all that cognizant of it prior to becoming a mother 17 years ago, so I might not necessarily have a before to compare it to, but I can certainly speak to the mommy culture that, is pervasive in our world today. And the weird thing is, because of social media, so now you've got this group of mommies who are, say their 20s through their 40s, whatever, who at the same time are kind of immersed in like junior high school, etiquette in a way, because it's like, I think that's probably, there's good and evil, so to speak, inherent to social media. I think it can be used for incredible good, like we're doing right now. Also, it can be very destructive. And a lot of that, again, has to do with our own personal responsibility of what we choose to expose ourselves to and then repeatedly expose ourselves to.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, even just in doing, and I'm technically, other than the Facebook thing, I'm typically not that. I mean, you're like the social media guru, and I give you props for that. I'm not. I mean, like, and also my son tells me I'm too old to do things like Instagram, but whatever, I'm going to get on there. But anyway.
You can do, Jenny, you can do anything you set your mind to.
I can totally do it. I have not yet, but maybe over maternity leave. So really, I'm kind of limited so far I've been limited in sort of my social media sphere. But now, since being pregnant and being a part of these couple, like I said, these discussion boards and birth boards and stuff, I've been a little more exposed to what just social media culture looks like in general. And it's been kind of amazing. I've seen people use it for incredible good and be building people up and be supporting one another. And then all of a sudden you've got every once in a while have these people, and I can tell that this just must be how they live their life on social media, who think that because they're behind the screen, they can type whatever they want to somebody. And it's like, the normal, the rules of general decency just don't apply. And it's shocking to me. I look at things and go, did she just say that? But I think also, by and large, what I'm seeing is that people are supportive of one another. I do think what's tricky, I guess, in the mommy culture, as you would say, is we don't seem to have this general acceptance of like, you do you mother your children the way you're called to mother your children. So I see both ways. I see people being shamed for, the other day I saw someone who's shamed for being terrified of birth and wanting to ask for an elective C-section. And people are like, oh my gosh, you're so stupid. You have no idea how, it's like, okay, well, hear the girl out. Like, she's got some fears. And then I see shaming toward people who choose to breastfeed, shaming for people who choose to breastfeed too long, shaming for people who choose to breastfeed too short of a time, incredible shaming for people who choose not to breastfeed. All of these are personal choices. Same thing with co-sleeping, which is like another really big topic. It's like, you're a terrible parent if you co-sleep. You're a terrible parent if you don't co-sleep. So I've what I'm seeing is that it's like there's sort of a culture of shame that, unfortunately, there's no keeping it happy. So I really think it's one of those things where the only way we're going to survive this, and not just in social media, but out there in the world, is to find your tribe, find the people that support you, who support you and allow you to be you and make the decisions that you feel are right for you and your child, and then dismiss the rest and choose not to submerge ourselves in it, because it can be, I think there's something almost a little addicting about shaming. When we find a group that's going to shame us for stuff, it's like, why don't we tear ourselves away from that? But a lot of times there's something that loops us in. So there's, like I said, some personal responsibility there, but that's probably the biggest thing, is find your tribe and stick with them. And it doesn't have to be a lot of people. I mean, I have a very small circle whom I love and trust, and I am comfy cozy there.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very pertinent insight as well, just generally, even if someone, is not going through the process of becoming a mother for the first time or again, because, in recovery and in that process, and then in whatever challenge in life you go through, you need to have those people around you that you can reach out to, you can be honest and vulnerable with, and that they will support you unconditionally. Just want to say, I know we got some new people on. Hello, we've got, Sarah said hello. Sarah is joining us. Hi from Australia. Hi, Sarah. Great to see you here. Thank you so much for saying hello. Sarah joins us quite often, and we're always happy to see her. And so if you're joining us, sign in and say hello and let us know. And of course, any questions, feel Jenna, sorry, Sarah is our friend from Australia. Jenna, how can we help support women who have recovered and are, relapse is a real threat when any challenging season comes, but any crazy changes to your body and hormones and increase in anxiety and there's just so much that comes with this process. What are some effective ways to prevent relapse into an eating disorder?
I think probably one of the first things is to make that make it a topic of conversation, or at least a topic of awareness with your care providers and with your circle of friends and relatives who are closest to you. So if we try to kind of sweep it under the rug and go, oh, that's behind me, I shouldn't struggle with this now, I should just be happy, and we don't make it part of the conversation, we really set ourselves up, because an eating disorder thrives in secrecy and shame. So if we can expose it early on, and not in a way that we necessarily are living in paranoia of, oh, I'm going to slip up, but rather just make people aware, like, hey, just so you all know, or you may already know, this is going to be a really precarious time for me in my recovery. If I reach out and need your support, please be there for me. If I call you and I'm having a neurotic moment and I need some reassurance, please just be there. Don't judge me. I mean, from the very outset, I think we can be proactive about it. I also think that, if we have those around us who have an eating or have struggled with an eating disorder, have it in their history, whatever, it's important this was not the case with me, probably because I've been through it before. Like I said, I was prepared to go in and kind of remind my midwife and her nurses, this is who I am, this is what I have dealt with, and this is what I need from you. But from what I understand, a lot of new moms with eating disorder histories, or even just with body image struggle histories, which is like pretty much everybody, I think, are kind of afraid or ashamed to mention that to their providers. And I think, I'm not sure really what that fear is about, if it's maybe a fear of being ashamed or not understood. But I think it's really important. And I don't have this statistic off the top of my head, but I did read recently that something like only 2% of people who are pregnant with a history of an eating disorder ever disclose that to their providers. So that means most providers are left in the dark. And so this is a case where we can sort of educate them a little bit, not necessarily about the world at large or women at large, but about us and the care that we need. So I think that's really important. So it's important just to kind of make sure that we're not hiding anything. And if we are, check ourselves and realize why we might be doing that. But I think that, it's kind of one of those things where an ounce of prevention, is worth a pound of cure in a way. So we can be preventative by just exposing it early on and making it part of the conversation. Then people can check in with us and ask how we're doing, and we can answer honestly, not be like, oh my gosh, they're on to me. They know I struggle. I've fallen off the recovery throne. There ain't no recovery throne. We just need to be real.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to say as well, we're going to be wrapping up with Jenna here in a couple minutes. So just want to make sure if you guys have got any questions or comments, make sure to get them in now so that we can get them to Jenna before she has to go. And also, if you are watching this video later and a question comes up, still feel free to put your question or comment below the video, and we will get to it. I come back and check the comments. We'll make sure that we give you some resources. Let's kind of just bridge to motherhood and being a mom. There's so many. Because we know, as we've both been through this battle before, that so much about eating disorders is so much deeper than body image and weight control behaviors, that it's really about something deeper. It's about identity. It's about self-worth. It's about significance. For young moms who are maybe struggling with postpartum depression, or moms who are struggling with, especially moms with young children, but moms at any age really, struggling with that, who am I now that, my whole life is devoted to raising this child, or all I do all day is deal with a newborn who's eating, pooping, and sleeping. Because that can be, even if it doesn't lead to relapse, it can be incredibly challenging, and you can feel like you're totally alone. What do women do, and what encouragement can you give them? Because I'm sure it's probably something you've dealt with as well.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. It can be incredibly isolating, I think, in the very beginning. And it's one of those things too, where, I often, this is a weird thing to liken it to, but like when you have a death in the family, when that death first happens, like everyone flocks around you and they're, showering you with support and bringing over casseroles if you live in the Midwest. And they're just like loving on you, right? And
Yeah.
then 6 weeks or so goes by and it's kind of like there's this strange perceived collective, perception that you must be over it and life is going on and just leave you alone. That's usually when people crash, because it's like now all of the chaos has passed and now what? And I think in a lot of cases, and I don't know if this would be the case with me or not. It's like I said, it's been a minute since the last time, but I know with, even friends who've had babies recently, it's kind of the same thing. It's like there's a baby shower and there's gifts and there's everyone coming over wanting to see the new baby when you probably don't want them to, and just all the stuff right in the beginning. And then it's like, oh, she needs time. She's a mom. Leave her alone. And that's, I think, often when a new mom will need interaction with people who can talk, for one thing, and just support in other ways. And so I think that's maybe something to just a tip for those of you who have new moms in your lives, to remember that, once all of the newness and excitement kind of wears off of the new baby, she's still a mom and she's still walking it out and working it out and needs support and help and sometimes just companionship. So, and if people around us are not necessarily aware of that, again, it comes back to, we need to make them aware. We need to reach out and be like, hey, totally really missing adult conversation. Like, I promise if you come over, I won't ask you if you have to go potty, like,
Yeah.
invite people over, or once your baby's a little bit older, find a mom that you can, take the strollers out and go for a walk with, or find your corner in Starbucks or whatever it is. But I think we don't want to, it's hard, like you said, adjusting to a new identity sometimes of motherhood. But at the same time, it's hard not to let our identity be encapsulated in that, so that we're not still ourselves and not still seeking the things that we've always needed. Intellectual stimulation, friends on the same page with us, psychologically, spiritually, socially, all of that. So we need to maintain, that really is kind of an aspect of self-care.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might be, it's tricky if you're a single mom. It's tricky if you're a working mom. But I think it can look different for everyone. But prioritizing ourselves as a person and still kind of taking care of what we need, so that we can then show up and be more present for our kids when we don't feel like we're chained to our kids and enslaved to our kids. It's a game changer, I think, if we're getting our needs met and taking care of ourselves, so that we then can be more present and available to them in those moments when it's just me and the baby.
Absolutely. Words of gold. Last question here, and actually doesn't really have to do with pregnancy or motherhood per se, but it is the day before Thanksgiving. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, everyone knows that this can be a challenging time for people with eating disorders, because so much of the holidays have to do with food and family, which can be two of like the most stressful things in someone's life if they're in recovery. So what kind of parting words of wisdom can you give for those people that are going into this holiday season, whether it's Thanksgiving tomorrow or it's Sarah in Australia or our friends all over the world who are looking forward to Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever holiday they celebrate? How do you deal?
Gosh, that's a tricky one, because I think everyone's dynamic is so different, and everyone's quote unquote family dinner table is going to look so incredibly different too. I think kind of the same principles that we talked about earlier, going into the day or the season with a sense of humor. Sometimes, like I said, people are going to say the craziest things. And sometimes I think it's important just to have someone in our lives that we can then go back to and debrief and be like, you are never going to believe what such and such said to me, who's then it's not going to go any further. You don't start a gossip, mongering thing. Keep your sense of humor for sure. Give people grace. And I know this is easier said than done. And give yourself grace, which is even harder than the first one. But, if people ask you about, if they're I used to hate this in early recovery, like straight out of treatment. I remember family dinners, and I felt like people were looking me in the plate instead of looking me in the face. They were wanting to know what I was eating and how much I was eating and how fast I was eating, how slow I was eating, if there was still food on my plate when I was done, and it was like,
Yeah.
And it was kind of one of those things, like the whole cliche line of, yeah, my eyes are up here, like I kind of want to do that and just be like, yeah. So, depending on who the people are, if someone's doing that and they're just like micromanaging or micro focusing on your food, depending on who they are, you might be like, hey, that's not helpful, stop. I'm not looking at your plate, If not, and with most people that probably won't be the dynamic you have with them, you just recognize that people don't know how to deal. Most people just don't get it, which is one of the most frustrating things in the world when you're struggling with eating disorder recovery, is to recognize that most people don't get it, and you're not going to make most people get it. If anything, you're not going to make them get it on Thanksgiving. You're just not. It's a short day. I think the focus ought to probably be, for our own well-being, enjoying the day, enjoying the conversation, enjoying the people, enjoying the food, given whichever capacity you have for that, enjoying the food to the most of your capacity, and then letting the rest slide. So I remember ages ago, and gosh, I hope this girl's watching, working with an alarm. She used to get all worked up about certain things, and we kind of, I don't remember if it was her or me, but one of us came up with this response where internally she would just go, whatever, because she was from New York City. So
I love that.
Like, I still will hear that in my head. Someone will say something, or I'll get my feathers ruffled, and I'm like, I want to get all worked up, and then I'll just be like, whatever, and move on. I swear. Game changer, just to remind ourselves of that. So I think for the day itself, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day, whatever, whenever your family gathering is, I think the goal needs to be getting through it with a sense of humor, getting through it, and then being able to move on. It doesn't necessarily have to be what we work it up to be in our minds. It's one meal. Also, that's the other thing too, especially in early recovery, it's one meal, which means it's not going to make or break your recovery. If you feel that you overindulge, so to speak, it's one meal. If you have all these high aspirations of, I'm going to eat the pumpkin pie and I'm going to eat this and I'm going to be a recovery warrior, and you don't make it, doesn't mean that you're no longer in recovery. It's one meal. Get through it, move on. Next year could be entirely different, but our goal this year is just to do the best we can with what's in front of us.
Amen, sister. Wonderful. Jenna, thank you so much. This was great. It is always so good to have you on, and thank you for sharing your heart and your transparency, your wonderful sense of humor, and you're just truly a gift, and I know that everyone really enjoyed what you had to say. So thank you so much for joining us again, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thank you, you too.
All right, thanks. Bye, Jenna.
Bye.
So as we say goodbye to Jenna, I just also want to say goodbye, and I hope that all of you who are watching, if you're in the United States and you're celebrating tomorrow, take those words to heart. It's just one meal. It's just one day, and you can do it. Keep those support people around you, like Jenna said so eloquently. And also, I just want to add, if you need to take a break from people, just take a break. Like, go step into another room. If it's not too cold where you live, step outside. That it's totally legitimate to just step outside and take a mental break, because there can be so much stimulation from food and conversation and people, and so much anxiety producing junk, that if you need to take a break, just take it for yourself. But it's only one meal and it's only one day, and you got this. So with that, just want to say goodbye. Have a wonderful, beautiful day, wonderful week, and we will see you again next week on another episode of Weekly Hope. So ciao.